the PTA student, so you'd be hanging with me. And we go to, actually you don't have to, because we want you guys to experience whatever you're interested in when you get there. But usually the PTA will go to the PTA caucus, which is, the whole House of Delegates runs like Saturday through Wednesday or Thursday. And so the PTA caucus meets first. So we do like Saturday and Sunday. Do the business meetings, elect our leaders, talk about, whatever topics are coming up, brainstorm. They do leadership training, really kind of fun. You get to meet the different leaders of the APTA. And then on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays, when they have the formal House of Delegates, they open kind of the legislative activity that's going on. So the important thing to remember about the association is at the bottom, the board of directors and the staff are directed by the House of Delegates on what to do. The delegates are directed by the members, pretty much. So it's really a membership-run organization, and it's pretty exciting, the different topics that the APTA does. If you look on the last page of your handout, I'm kind of jumping you around. I always hated it when my teachers did that. But the last page talks a little bit about House of Delegates. I already talked about one of the things when they're debating a policy or something, topic that's up, they call it the motion an RC, which looks like, that sounds so mysterious. It really just stands for Reference Committee. It's kind of an old term that they used to use, and it never hasn't died yet. But so if you go on the website as House of Delegates is getting close, usually every year there's 20 to 25 different RCs, which are motions that different delegations bring up to present at the thing. So for example, last year, Oregon, they hadn't presented a motion for about 15 years, and Oregon actually created a motion which was to ask the board of directors, to direct the board of directors to speak with the Federation of Licensing Boards to find a way to make it easier for PTs who want to do fellowships in other states to transfer their licenses. Because right now, like if I was PT and I wanted to study in Virginia, I would need to get a license there because the fellowships are actually treating patients. It might be a 6-month or 9-month fellowship, and you need to get your license. Well, it can take 6 months to 9 months just for them to process your application. Oregon's not like that. They're very efficient. But some of the states are just bare bone. They might have one person that's processing things, and people are waiting months and months. And so that was delaying the training for some of the PTs who want to do specialized training. So that, of course, was a no-brainer. That was an easy one to adopt. It was discussed, and they, on the floor, talked about why, pros and cons, what does it involve. It's basically just asking the board, directing the board to, hey, talk to the licensing boards about this and see if we can get it expedited or get it, put them to the front of the line when the people are going for specialized training. So that's an example of an RC. Last year, the big one, did you guys hear about the PTA one vote? Yeah? So you guys can read a little bit more at the end, but I want to give you a little introduction. This was kind of my, the first year I had not been involved. Many people had done a lot of legwork on this for years before. PTAs were admitted to the association in like 73 and kind of morphed. A lot of different types of governance have been tried, I think 2 or 3 different structures. And the current structure where we have the PTA caucus with 52 state representatives seems to be working pretty good. One of the things that the PTAs wanted is more of a voice, so that when they're doing things like writing the Vision 2020, that there's a PT in there going, and PTAs, and just kind of reminding them to make sure that the language is inclusive and things like that. So every 5 years, you can change the bylaws of the association. And in order to allow the PTAs to have a fuller vote, currently PTAs have no vote on the House of Delegates, and they have only half a vote at the state level. And that used to be 1 vote. And we used to have a vote at the House of Delegates, but in compromising structure and politics and all that, somehow got dwindled down to no vote at the House of Delegates and only half a vote at the business meeting. So, you know, that's just not democratic. It's just kind of really not fair. It's one of those things, not a matter of, you know, who's running the association or anything like that. It's just a matter of, you know, you pay your dues, you should have a full vote. So that kind of argument has been going on for about 10 years, which has probably been, you know, the biggest. People say, well, isn't that kind of negative to talk about? But I really don't think it is, because I think it's all part of that whole, we're a pretty new profession, and we're still growing. And I think the PTAs are changing the most as far as what we're being asked to do. And these, I think, in my opinion, the association's a little slow. It's a bureaucracy, it's big, you know, and you don't want to rush into things either. So it's, you know, it's good to be pensive, but so there's a lot of very dedicated PTAs. Our 5 delegates who sit, they're the red guys here in the House of Delegates, have been very dedicated and persevered and keep trying. Like 5 years ago, they tried to get them to change the PTA vote to a full vote at chapter level. Still no vote at the House, the national level, but at the chapter. So when you know, we just elected our new members, our new executive board, and I got half a vote. So, you know, that's just not right.
Do you have an example of where your involvement as a caucus rep was solicited and used at either the state level or at the national level, where you felt like you were contributing to some policy or position process, and how that worked for you, and what was the result of that?
Yeah, and this is an example of that. One of the things that we were asked to do as caucus reps is to educate and talk to our delegates who are doing the voting. And we also, there's other topics. One of them was, there's a policy in the APTA where they had decided that PTAs and PTs were going to be the sole providers of physical therapy. So there was not, you couldn't bill for services by a massage therapist in your clinic, or a aide, or a athletic trainer. And so this last thing, along with the one vote, there was a thing about the one vote where the PTAs wanted to get a full vote. There was also another RC that wanted to use care extenders, which were exercise physiologists, athletic trainers. And so that potentially was the association, your delegates, deciding whether or not that was a good idea for our profession. And of course the PTA caucus was actually more concerned with that issue than the one vote. The one vote's sort of fairness issue. But this is really very much affecting, or could affect, jobs and practice. So it was really cute at the House of Delegates. That one was actually almost talked about more than the one vote, because it was brought up by the private practice section. And the interesting politics of that is, why would they do that is one thing. But the driving force behind that motion was that their people couldn't find enough assistants. Isn't that a great problem to have for job security, you know? So they were sort of just bringing this motion forward to have a discussion about there aren't enough assistants. How are we going to get our people? And what used to be that there was never enough assistants in nursing homes. They all worked in outpatient ortho sports. Well, then the nursing homes and skilled nursing facilities started paying more, having good benefits, started drawing people over this way, and then the outpatients practices do not have a pool enough. You know, that's great for us, but we don't want, you know, we all know the training that goes into understanding physical therapy and disability and dysfunction, as opposed to somebody who's healthy and you know, does exercise physiology or massage therapy. So anyway, so this motion was brought forward and it was debated. We talked about it with our delegates. And so I get a little bit lonely because I'm the only PTA in this group. But luckily Oregon's a very supportive state for PTAs. All the delegates have been really nice. But we'll have a meeting with, like, there's 8 of us, the 7 delegates and the assistant, and we'll talk about why that's not good, what assistants would think about that. So very much just educating the PTs that you work with, the PTs in the association. Also, you're just there, I'm there as a resource. They will often ask questions, just having worked in different environments and kind of, met different people or had different discussions. So it's a good advocacy.
And also, Dan, do you want to talk about on the local level in terms of Con Ed, about how your voice has been solicited or introducing discussions about what classes to offer to assistants? Or
Yeah, so one of the things just about me, and this is more to do with my personality than anything, but you guys could probably relate, is I love to learn and take classes and do things, and especially you guys are going to be going into a career that's just really, there's so much to do. I mean, there's so many different settings that you can work in. There's so many different opportunities. And so I've done actually a lot of Con Ed training and did continuing ed through the association. That's one of the things, one of the big benefits to me as an assistant is they have really reasonable workshops and very good discounts when you're a member. So you can get a lot of, continuing ed. So one of the things I did was do I had my massage therapy license, which I got like a year after I got out of assistant school, because we could do it like a real abbreviated and get our license then. So I had done that. I loved doing manual therapy, so I started doing a lot of training just in myofascial release, joint mobilizations, strength counter straining, muscle energy, and ended up doing a certification through Great Lakes, which at the time was the only one who was allowing assistants to be certified, which to me is silly, because it's like, really, if you're going to have an assistant do advanced skills, wouldn't you want to be tested and, tried and tested? But so one of the things that became very controversial, because PTs don't do joint mobilizations, but it's very kind of fickle. It depends on where you're working. Because if you're in a nursing home and people have contractures, that's not glamorous at all to go in and do joint mobilizations and reduce a contracture. Probably, I would question, maybe a little more important functionally. But, somebody who's had a sports injury, they don't want you doing any joint mobs. That's like outside of your scope, And so that's one of those areas that has changed. And pretty much every clinic I've ever been at, it's very standard practice now for PTAs to be doing joint mobilizations. That's not an entry-level skill. Is that what you're getting at?
No, actually, what she's saying is a great example of what is happening in clinical practice and what the position of the American Physical Therapy Association is. So I want you to hear this from me. It is the policy of the American Physical Therapy Association, in which licensing boards reflect on, that physical therapy assistants do not do joint mobilization. Because joint mobilization, according to the American Physical Therapy Association, requires continuous assessment, and that's considered a physical therapist skill. So, PTAs who do joint mobilizations and the PTs who supervise those PTAs who do joint mobilizations are potentially at risk for a licensure issue should something get reported or should something go south. Now, there were, at the combined sections meeting that I attended just this last year, there were 3 different presentations, evidence-based presentations on exactly what she's talking about. Our PTAs doing joint mobilization, they're doing it all across the country.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that the position and the policy of the American Physical Therapy Association is very firm, and they won't actually hear any RCs on this issue anymore because they feel that it has been decided. And it doesn't mean that 10 years from now it won't come back and be discussed, because as Jennifer's talking about, the practice is evolving. One of the nice things about becoming involved and sharing your voice, and all those people who are doing those presentations very controversial at a conference, is that they want to be part of a process that facilitates change, and the only way to do that is to just keep raising the issue and saying, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about this?